Hey guys, welcome back. I know a lot of us are pretty shocked at the price of eggs recently, and I know there are a lot of contributing factors and the price of eggs kind of go up and down. That being said, I remember this exact same thing happening like just a couple years ago. I just remember thinking at that time, I'm glad I have chickens already and I'm definitely not getting rid of them. And now it's the same thing. For those of us that keep chickens, it doesn't really make a difference what price the eggs are, because not only are the egg prices a problem, but egg availability is a problem. So we've been keeping chickens for quite a few years now. We didn't grow up keeping chickens, don't feel like there is a high barrier to entry. And I know that a lot of people are thinking about getting into the chickens for the first time, which I think is fantastic. I know there are a lot of videos and content going around right now kind of suggesting people put the brakes on and think before they get chickens, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's great advice to learn as much as you can before you get chickens and maybe think twice, but don't feel like you have to think too many times. We actually got chickens because we wanted them to eat a weed in our yard. If we had never had that invasive species, we probably never would have gotten chickens, so the eggs are a bonus for us. That being said, I obviously think chickens are well worth it, and sometimes I think all the apprehension to getting into them is just a little bit overblown. So today I'm gonna go over 4 major reasons to keep chickens in 2025 and beyond. We got chickens actually just prior to 2020, I think it was 2018 or 19, and we are obviously very glad we did, considering especially the fact that now we have a giant garden and a whole bunch of goats too, so just be prepared for the addiction. First reason on this list of why to get chickens in 2025 is egg prices, obviously. So egg prices have gone way up. Personally, I don't see a whole lot of indicators that they're gonna go down significantly anytime soon or permanently. I'm sure they will fluctuate like everything, but as a general whole, they've only continued to increase. Eggs are an amazing superfood in my opinion. I think there are a lot of reasons to have them as a staple in any diet for people who are able to eat them. One common thing I see people posting is that eggs won't be cheaper if you get chickens, and this can be true and it can be not true. So a lot of people honestly really overdo the chicken keeping process. This coop you see behind me is not the fanciest coop, but it is certainly way overboard from what is even necessary. A lot of people build coops for free. If you want one that is really beautiful or really quick, what's that phrase? You can either have it done cheaply, well done, or quickly, and you can only pick 2 out of the 3, but you can't have all 3. That's kind of the case with chicken coops, I believe too. We built all our coops ourselves, but a lot of people will literally get the materials for free, whether it's pallets or local construction materials that are just being discarded. Do not feel like you have to invest a ton of money into a fancy chicken coop. You can get a ready-made chicken coop if you want it, you know, within a few hours, if you want to just assemble it and have it done. A few years back we did a video with an Ivatuvan coop. I will link that one below, and that one is still being used by some smaller hens in a big stall. I actually left it with our neighbors when we moved, but they still use that one in the stall kind of for broody hens and things. But you're kind of paying for convenience with those coop kits. So a lot of people just see kind of the prices of these coops and they just feel like they have no other option to jump right in and to buy those coops. There are so many options when it comes to chicken coop. Definitely do your research and find out, you know, do you want even a 3-sided shelter if your climate, you can get away with it, or do you want electric netting like we have? Long story short, don't feel like because you're getting chicks, you have to just buy what's at Tractor Supply. Ton of options for coops. You can build one for free if you want to put in a little extra work. Feed costs are probably the next biggest thing. Feed is hard to get around, but you can dramatically reduce the cost of feed by just feeding your chickens scraps, leftovers, especially if you cook a lot on your own, and especially if you have kids. From experience, they leave a lot of their food on their plate, and our chickens eat really well, especially because of our kids. So you can dramatically reduce the cost of feed. You can basically build a coop for free if you want to. And bedding and shavings, we don't even use shavings anymore. We started out using shavings, don't even use them anymore. We use wood chips that we get for free from our local municipality. Even those things that we do pay for, really the cost is offsetted because we have a big garden and we use their compost in our garden, which we used to pay hundreds of dollars for every year. So for us, the eggs are next to free, but for other people, especially if you live in more urban areas, some people even have requirements by their like HOAs of what their coops are supposed to look like. So then you might have to pay more if you're in one of those situations. But don't feel like you have to be trapped into saving a lot of money to keep chickens. Egg availability is another major reason to keep chickens. Obviously, when prices go up, it usually means availability is going down. So sometimes we're complaining about buying expensive eggs one day and then the next day they're not even there for us to buy. So I will say, if you're gonna get chickens, know that their laying does not remain consistent throughout the year, especially if you have major season fluctuations like we do. If you want them to lay throughout the year, you're gonna have to look into adding light to their coop, for example, or just getting a crazy ton of chickens like we did. So we have so many chickens that even though their laying slows down during the year, we still are usually kept very well with our egg supply. And I should add, my family and I, we eat about a dozen eggs a day, give or take. So it is no small feat for us to have enough eggs. But in general, you're gonna have more egg availability if you're keeping chickens. Sometimes you'll even have too much, in which case a lot of people will sell their eggs. Obviously giving them away is a great idea too, but if you wanna sell them, then you can sort of offset some of that feed cost as well. Another reason to keep chickens on your own is egg quality. I know this can be kind of a hot topic, but even things like vitamin D levels have been measured higher in free range eggs than in kind of like the factory farm eggs. Honestly, if you are just eating eggs, if you eat free range eggs compared to caged factory farm eggs, they don't even look the same, they don't even taste the same. If you're just comparing macros, then yeah, they're gonna be the same when it comes to carbs, fat, and protein as a general rule, but all those micronutrients, I believe there's so much more to food than just macronutrients. That being said, if you are buying eggs in the store, obviously there are good reasons to buy free range versus factory farm eggs. However, it might be worth your time to look up the difference between what is required when they say they're free ranged as opposed to actual free range chickens, especially for meat birds. That's a whole separate tangent, but that being said, honestly, you just can't beat chickens walking around and eating bugs in the sunlight, even in the dead of winter. Finally, the last thing I'll say is another reason to keep eggs in 2025 or beyond is all of a sudden we have an abundance of supplies and resources that maybe we didn't have in the recent history. And I think that's because for a long time, keeping chickens was just expected. Pretty much everyone did it for good reason. They are a fantastic, versatile, and very high benefit animal in my opinion. Kind of a super animal, it seems like. There's this weird generational gap where individual homes, especially in America, kind of stopped keeping chickens as the norm. And then a whole generation between them and between us now just kind of like forgot a lot of knowledge that was considered common sense and common knowledge when it came to chickens. So I think getting into chickens maybe 20 years ago, there weren't quite as many resources as there are now in terms of people sharing their experience online like we do. A lot of forums and groups where people just kind of talk in text form about keeping chickens and make recommendations that way. There are so many supplies now that you can get. It's not anymore limited to just one kind of feeder or water. Like we sell our chicken plans online. I know a lot of other people do as well. If you want super cheap feed, you can get that at your local store. Or if you want organic, soy-free, very specific feed for your chickens, I know we just got sent some stuff by a company called Scratch and Peck. This isn't sponsored by them yet, but they did send us some stuff and I'm just amazed at how high quality of chicken food and chicken resources there are now. It's not just that you get a bag of corn from the local feed store, you know, you can get really specific with what you want to do with your chickens if that's the route you want to go. If you just want to feed them super cheap, you can also do that too. Obviously, we've worked quite a bit with Grubterra. We love black soldier fly larvae for our chickens, so we don't even feed them oyster shells. Now we just feed them these black soldier fly larvae, which are very nutritious in other ways too. All that to say, there really are so many resources out there. Not only are there a lot of resources, but there are a lot of other newbies kind of getting into it with you too. I know that when I started getting into chickens, I felt kind of alone, honestly. I felt like there was no way that I was gonna do this right. I felt like I would probably do wrong by the animals and feel super guilty, and I didn't feel like I was qualified to be doing it, but I am so glad that it's something we did. I'm glad that there were the resources there were then, but it's so cool to see kind of the resource boom that has happened in terms of people sharing their knowledge and people offering new products and supplies and that kind of thing. All that said, if high egg prices and low egg availability have brought you to this video, welcome, you're in good company. I'm sure you've watched plenty of videos by now saying you're not gonna save money on eggs, or you know, it's gonna be so much work. We have an automatic chicken door, by the way. Highly, highly recommend. When we go away for a few days, we don't even worry one bit. It's a hobby. It's one of those things where you can spend very little on it, or you can have a lot of fun and spend a lot on it if you want to. But when push comes to shove, nothing really beats being able to spend time with the chickens, going out, collecting the eggs, and having fresh, farm fresh eggs for breakfast. I always say please do research from as many different resources as possible. Everybody's gonna have different advice and experience. So weigh all the pros and cons, and I'm sure you will make the best decision for you and your family. Thanks for watching today.